Hello, so I'm Beth. I met a few of you at the session last month. I came along and Maxine asked me to come along and tell my story. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about my journey with chronic fatigue, where I'm at now, the things that helped me, and some sort of tips and advice and things that you might want to try that might help you, might not, but it's just me sharing my experience because when I had chronic fatigue, there was nothing like this. There was no support groups. I was in London at the time. There was just nothing around. But the thing that really helped me was just feeling like I had a bit of hope. And that mostly came from meeting other people who had chronic fatigue, who were living a normal life or a happy life or a good life, however you want to phrase it. So I'm hoping that if you take away nothing else from that, you take away a little bit of hope because so 5.5 years ago when I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, I couldn't get out of bed. Now I work, I run my own business, I socialise, I can go out with people, I can have a good time with my friends and family, I exercise, I'm living what I would consider a very happy, healthy life, despite of having the label of chronic fatigue. I don't really talk about recovery because I know some people do, and if that's a term that you want to use, then that's fine. But for me personally, it wasn't about recovery, it was about thriving despite and not being defined by the label chronic fatigue. So I think a lot of us, when we get that diagnosis, it can feel like the end of a lot of things. For me, it was actually the start of a really positive, really helpful journey that's led me to be where I am today, where I'm actually, I think, healthier and happier than I was before. So I'm just going to tell you a bit about that. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them as we go along, because I know it can be difficult to remember what you were going to ask by the time we get to the end, so just stick your hand up, that's fine, not a problem. And if you want to have a break, I'm not going to overwhelm you, hopefully it's just quite relaxed and just casual, but if you want to have a break at any point, then that's fine as well. So yeah, what happened with me when I developed chronic fatigue, so I'd been through 2 years of quite extreme stress. At the time when I was going through it, I didn't think it was that big a deal, but looking back I can see there was a lot of stress in my life. I was young, I was in sort of my late 20s, so I was just, I'll keep going, I'll carry on, I'll be all right. I kept getting sore throats and laryngitis and losing my voice, and I thought, I'll be fine, I'll get better. Then my hair started falling out, and even that wasn't enough to stop me and go, something's not right here. So I had lots of little symptoms. My energy was always a bit less than it used to be, but you just kind of think, I'm busy, I'm stressed, I'm working hard, I was socialising a lot, I was exercising a huge amount, far too much. So I just thought it was all of those things, thought, I'll take it a bit easy, I'll get better. But then, so it was about 5.5 years ago, it was in the April 2013, and I got a virus. I don't know what virus, they never found out, but I got a virus, and I felt like, there was one day I felt like I was getting the flu, the next day I couldn't get out of bed, and you think, okay, I've got the flu, fine, it goes on, and I'm sure everyone's had similar experiences, and you think, okay, this isn't the flu, I need to get some help. Went to the doctor, tests, everything else. I won't go into that in detail because we've all got our own experiences of that and they're all probably equally painful, so we won't go into that. But basically it was just, I got to the point where I was like, something's not right. And they referred me to a specialist, what was a chronic fatigue specialist at the hospital. And I went there with all the hope of this person giving me the solution of saying, look, here's what you can do to make yourself better, because that's what doctors can do, right? I went there and this person sat me down, so it took me 2 buses to get there, so it took me all of my energy, all of my strength to even get there. They kept me waiting for like 45 minutes, an hour. I then went in and they said to me, have you tried getting more sleep? And I went, okay, right, you're not a specialist, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about, because that is not going to help me. I sleep for 14, 15, 16 hours, I wake up, I feel no better, I feel worse. So that, for me, was a point where I said, do you know what? The doctors don't have the answers. My GP had just gone, off you go. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to figure out what I can do to improve and help myself. So I looked at lots of holistic therapies. I found nutrition, which is something I'll talk about a bit more detail later on, because that's the thing that I'm most passionate about in terms of having helped myself. And yeah, so I got the diagnosis, I didn't get the help, so I went and sought it somewhere else. So just a little bit about kind of what helped me in my recovery. And I'm going to say I'm really sorry, because I wish that I could give you the magic answer to what is going to help you feel better. But there isn't a magic pill and there isn't a magic solution, and it's not a case of everybody eat that and not eat that and you'll feel better, and do this and not do that and you'll feel better. Because every single person in this room, me included, everybody's had a different experience and a different impact from chronic fatigue. And therefore, and this is why I think people are struggling to really help people with chronic fatigue and ME, is there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to it. But there are things that you can try that can help move you forward, that can help improve your energy, improve your brain fog, all of those sorts of things. And those little things all add up. And what works for you will be different for somebody else. So this isn't a prescription for what's going to work. I'm really sorry. I wish I could give it to you. But it's something that hopefully you can pick and choose things that feel right for you to help you. So the first thing that I had to do before I could move forwards with improving my well-being was accepting the diagnosis of chronic fatigue and accepting where I was then. So I had a tendency to be yearning back for the person I was before I got ill, or looking forward to when I'm better, whereas actually the only moment that I had was right then, right there, was the now. And having to accept where I was and accept that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do was step one of actually being able to move forward. And accepting it is not a case of resigning yourself to anything negative. It's not a negative thing in my opinion. It's just going, okay, this is where I am now, and then thinking about this is where I want to get to. And for me, it wasn't about going from A to the final point B of being healthy, whatever healthy means to you or whatever well means to you. It was about a little step. So like the first thing I wanted to be able to do was to be able to have a shower and not have to have a nap afterwards, you know, to be able to walk to the shop, to be able to, just those little things. So I set myself little goals, very small, tiny things, which some people were like, what do you mean have a nap after a shower? What are you on about? And I'm like, no, literally, I can't have a shower and not have a nap. So it was looking at those little things and really planning out, okay, one step at a time, not even thinking about the bigger picture, because that's just too overwhelming and too kind of feels impossible. So if you think about the big picture, it's not going to work, because you're just going to go, well, that's impossible. But the little steps are possible. And realising what I could change. So the other thing is, I think chronic fatigue feels like it takes a lot from you. Takes a lot of control from you, because you don't know when you're going to have energy and when you're not. You don't know if you're going to have to let people down and say, I can't do that thing that I said I was going to do with you because I just don't have the energy. You don't, there's lots of unknowns with chronic fatigue. You don't know how long it's going to take to recover. And then it's a case of, seeing what you could change and taking control of those things. So I was like, okay, well, I can change the food that I'm eating. I'm in control of that completely. Apart from when my partner was cooking, but I could tell him what to do, so that's fine. I could control the thoughts that were in my head. So this might sound like a strange thing to talk about, but for me, a lot of the thoughts that were in my head around having chronic fatigue, around my energy, around the things that I could and couldn't do, were negative. And so I think there's a big impact. There's a lot of research going on about the link between the brain and body and the things that we think in our head and the impact that has in our body. And I couldn't find, I know there was a video, but I couldn't find it because I wanted to show you guys, but you can do this experiment where you tell someone to hold their arm out and you tell them to close their eyes and you say, you're strong, you're strong, you're strong, and they can resist someone pushing quite a lot of weight on their arm. And then you close their eyes and you tell them, you're weak, you're pathetic, and tiny amount, and their arm will fall down. So there is more research and more evidence about the thoughts that we have will impact our physical body. So if we're constantly thinking, I can't do that, no way, I'm not going to be able to manage, this is awful, really negative thoughts, it puts negative energy, if you like, in your body. And so changing those thought patterns and going, well, what can I do? What can I take control of? Changing those thoughts that were in my head to, I can get better, I can improve, I can, positive thoughts, positive affirmations, some people call them, was a big change for me. And I started visualizing, which again, might not be for everyone, but I'm just sharing my stories and my things. So I used to sit there and I used to visualize the things that I wanted to do when I was well. And that was in minute detail. So I used to visualize, for me, health always meant being able to exercise. It was a massive part of my life before. So I would sit there and I would visualize myself putting on my running trainers, doing them up, going for a run. I'd actually visually watch a film of it in my head. And there was a day where I managed to put on my trainers and go out. It took about 3 years, but I did go for a run. I don't run very much anymore because actually I know it's not healthy for me, but I know I can, and it's my choice not to. So it's that kind of thought pattern of changing that and the thinking, okay, what do I believe about where I can get to with this? Because if you believe you can do something, then you're more likely to achieve it, because belief is the first step on that. So changing those thought patterns and changing the way that I was living. So my life has changed hugely since I got sick. I mean, I've got a whole new career. I've moved from London out to beautiful Hertfordshire. I'm living a very different life to what I was before. And so I had to realise that I couldn't go back to the person I was before. And actually I didn't want to, because part of the way I was before contributed to me becoming sick, because I was constantly on the go, constantly stressed, very anxious, always busy, must be doing, can't stop, can't rest. I still slip into that tendency, and my partner is very strict with saying, check yourself, check what you're doing, stop, take some time out. So it's that kind of realisation of not looking backwards, looking forwards, and being positive about where forwards could get you. So the other thing that I had to realise, so as I said to you, I went to see a doctor and I thought, the doctor's going to give me a pill, the doctor's going to make me better, they're going to tell me what I need to do, great. And actually what I learned was you can have the best team of professionals all around you and they can give you all the tools that you need, but ultimately it's you that drives your recovery. So if you imagine it like driving a car to a destination, they can give you the map, they can show you the way, they can give you the car and the petrol, but ultimately you're the one that's going to get in and drive that car to the end place. So you need to own your illness and take control of it and accept what you can and can't do, but strive for the things that you can do and drive your own recovery. Nutrition. I will talk a bit more about this later on, but I made quite drastic overhauls to my diet, not all at once. I did it in stages because it's too overwhelming otherwise. And I found that it was helping, little bits by little bits. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. And like I said, everyone's going to be different, so I'm not saying that by doing that, by following the diet that I eat, you're going to feel better, but there's certain evidence and research that would show that certain foods are better or worse for the body in certain conditions, and if we think about what's going on in our body, then those foods could be better or worse. I did take supplements. Some people like them, some people don't. For me, my body was so depleted and my digestion was shot. I basically wasn't working at all. I couldn't absorb any nutrients. So even when I was eating a much better diet, I was working with a nutritionist and we were finding that I still wasn't feeling as good as I felt I should do with that amount of nutrition in me. So we added in some supplements which were easier for my body to absorb and use. But that's not a long-term solution, that's a short-term get your energy up. Because the other thing with nutrition, and I'm fully aware of this, and I'm going to give you some tips to make it easier, it takes energy to cook a meal. And absolutely, you know, I was at a point where I was like, I can either cook a meal and not have the energy to eat it, or I've got the energy to eat it but I can't cook it. So like, where do you even start from that? So simple meals are really important. But yeah, so supplements were really helpful for me, but that's again something very personal. Meditation, John and I were talking before, and meditation for me has been life-changing. So John's going to do a guided meditation with you, which would be lovely. But for me, yeah.
Sorry, can I just ask what supplements you took?
Yes, so I took a kind of multivitamin and mineral in a powder form, which went into a smoothie that I would make in the morning. So I'll talk about smoothies later, because for me that was something I had the energy to make and the energy to drink, and it's much easier to absorb nutrients from it. So I had a powder that would go into there that was a multivitamin and mineral. I took a probiotic to help support the gut and improve the gut bacteria, to basically improve my digestion so that I could eat food and get the nutrients from it. I took an iron supplement for a little while because I was slightly anemic, and I took a B complex because the B vitamins are very essential for energy production and get depleted quite a lot in stress. And then I took a magnesium. This is all sort of various times, some were all together and some weren't, but the magnesium was to aid with sleep and relaxation because I was so anxious and so stressed the whole time. I was literally walking around like that. And then I'm sure we've all had that tired and wired phase where you're lying in bed going, well, I'm exhausted but I can't sleep. So the magnesium really helped with that as well. So those are the things I took. Okay. And I think it's different for everyone, and you do have to be careful with supplements. I'll say this twofold. Obviously, if you're on any medications, you need to be careful from interactions with them. And also, I would say, get the best quality supplements you can afford, because some of the supplements on the market, the form of the vitamin and minerals, your body can't really use. So it's better to pay a bit more and get something that's actually going to help you. But yeah, I'm happy to chat about supplements if you want. But yeah, meditation was really, really helpful. Visualization I've talked about. And yeah, the mindset and the thought patterns. So I hated saying no to people. So anytime anyone asked me to do anything, I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then I was like, how have I got time to do that and sleep and eat? And I found it really difficult, and I had this massive fear around saying no to people. So learning to say no has been a big thing for me. And something I still struggle with, but I'm getting better at. Changing the thought patterns about the fact that if I'm not busy, I'm not productive. If I'm not productive, I'm of no use to anyone. I'm not doing any good. Those kind of negative thought patterns were there a lot in my mind. So, and having to have a perfect house, that's something that stemmed from childhood for me. Having to have the house clean and tidy before I could relax, which is just exhausting because constantly tidying and cleaning, and it's not healthy. Sorry, I don't know which page is next. Okay. So I had to just learn to be okay with where I was, okay with not doing everything and not being everything to everybody, and just accepting it and taking those small steps. So, fine for time. I guess it's thinking about the advice that I would give you, and if you were going to take some thoughts away from it. Step one is to take back control of your health and your well-being and be the driver for your own health. If you're waiting for somebody else to make you better, I'm really sorry, but it's not going to happen. And that's the hardest thing probably to take away from it, but it has to come from you, because nobody else can change the thoughts in your head. They can tell you better thoughts, but you're the person that is your mind. I can tell you good things to eat or not eat, but you're the one that's going to cook them and put them in your body. So, and I think there's something quite empowering about taking control of your health. And I think, and I was guilty of it for a long time. I believed that, if you got sick, you went to the doctor, they give you something, they make you better, you go away. But actually, if you take action yourself, and now I very rarely go to the doctor. quite lucky. I don't, have to. But it's that kind of like being accepting of that and saying, okay, it's within my power to change these things. And what can I change? And no, don't try to do it all at once. So this is things that I've done over the last 5 years, all of those things that I was talking about. I didn't do those all overnight. I've done them slowly over 5 years. They've taken time. And yeah, the other thing to realise with this journey is it's not a straight line from A to B, from feeling crap to feeling well. I went, off on tangents. I would go backwards quite often, and I would get frustrated and I go, this isn't working, I've got worse, or I was getting better and then I've got worse. You have to be very accepting of the fact that will happen. It's an inevitable part of the cycles that you will go backwards and forwards, you'll go around in circles, you'll go off over here, you'll come back. And being okay with that is quite hard. So for me, it was like every time I had more energy, I was like, yes, awesome, I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to go and do that, and then I would crash. And every crash, what I realised, and you don't realise it when you're in a crash, you can only realise it when you're out of that and you've stepped back and got a bit of perspective. But I realised, one, they're not as frequent. I wasn't crashing as frequently. Two, every time I did crash, I wasn't crashing as hard for as long, if that makes sense. So it would be, initially I would have a setback and it would be months. Then it would be a setback and it would be weeks. Then it would be a setback and it would be days. And then it got to the point where I could preempt a setback, where I could go, okay, there's some warning signals going off here. I seem to have an obsession with analogies with cars, but like a car dashboard, and you get the warning light that goes, oh, you need to check your oil, or you need to check your engine. I feel like I have that in my head. So there's every so often where I go, my fuel pump comes on, and I go, yeah, I haven't eaten for ages. No wonder I'm starting to feel a bit shaky and a bit agitated. Or, yeah, I haven't drunk any water, or actually, I haven't meditated for a couple of weeks. No wonder I feel stressed. And so now I can see those warning lights and go, right, I need to take action now, otherwise I will end up crashing. And, I had those warning lights at the beginning of this week, interestingly. My partner called it karma. He was like, you're going to talk to people about chronic fatigue, and now your body's telling you you're doing too much. I'm like, yeah, okay. So it still happens, but it's being aware of that and being so in tune with your body that you can go, okay, I know what my body needs, I know what I need to do, and being okay with stepping back from things. But then also not feeling like that, if you like, throwing everything out because of that little setback. And I used to go, oh, this diet isn't working, I'm not doing it anymore. This meditation doesn't do anything. Actually it does, but you need to kind of accept that there will be setbacks. And that's not the end of the world, if that makes sense, that little setback. Because when you're in it, it feels like the end of the world. But actually, you'll come out the other side again and you'll go, okay, that was my body saying that was too much. I did too much. Or for me, it's quite often when I get busy, my diet will slip. So I know people are like, you're a nutritionist, your diet can't slip. It does, we all get busy. But yeah. So I can then see, and we were saying, if I eat too much bread, then I can see there's an impact for me, that it makes me feel worse. So it's kind of being aware of that. Set yourself small goals, as I said, rather than looking at the big picture. So, maybe have little goals that you want to reach, and when you reach there, stay there for a little while until you're very comfortable with doing that thing and not having a setback, and then set yourself another goal. And it will be tiny steps, but it can be quite helpful to do that. We've talked about that. And then, so I'm going to talk a bit more about nutrition and understanding your body and what it needs. So quite often with something like chronic fatigue, the body is extremely stressed. It's under a huge amount of stress. Quite often there's, for me anyway, and for a lot of people that I've spoken to, there was a stressful period or event leading up to the crash or burnout or whatever you want to call your experience of it. And so when your body's under stress, your adrenals are pumping out cortisol. And so we need to do things to support our adrenals, to help lower our cortisol levels. And meditation is great for lowering cortisol. But from a digestive perspective, we need to be making sure we're eating regular meals throughout the day. So we don't want to let our blood sugars drop, because when your blood sugars drop, it's the same thing in your body. It goes, oh, we're in a stressful situation, release more cortisol, and when you don't have any cortisol, your body's going to really struggle to do that. So lots of regular meals is going to be helpful. Smaller meals, because also when you're in a stress situation, your digestion will actually switch off, because without going into too much science, because I don't really want to do that, but basically when your body switches on the stress or the fight and flight, it's because it thinks you're in life danger, and so it wants to protect you. It doesn't need to digest, so it's moving all the energy to your limbs to run away rather than using it to digest the food that you've just eaten. So it's important that they're small meals and that they're easy to digest meals. So I mentioned smoothies before. Smoothies are so easy, such an amazing way to get a lot of nutrients into you. They're easy to prepare and cook. They don't even need cooking, but easy to prepare and make. That was the word I needed, not cook. And easy to eat, and you can kind of just sip them throughout the day. And for me, I used to really struggle in the morning. I had zero appetite in the morning. I used to actually wake up feeling sick, so I was like, can't eat anything. But obviously that was just perpetuating it and making it worse, because my body was going, we need food to function, you're not giving us anything. So when I started having smoothies, it's easy on the digestion. It's easy for them to get the nutrients because they've already broken down. If you think of it like, your banana, it's already broken down in the smoothie. It's really easy for your body to get the nutrients from it.
Can I ask what you normally put in them? Can you, if you can take it, is sort of milk and sort of plain live or Greek yogurt and bun stuff with that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So with a smoothie, what you want to be thinking about is having your healthy fats, your protein, and your carbohydrates. So you're combining everything in one, and what you want to make sure is it's not too sugary. So if you're putting in all fruit and nothing else, like fruit, and so you'll see smoothies on the shelves, kind of the manufactured ones, they're quite often heavy fruit. And fruit, even though it's good for you, in a smoothie it can be too much sugar. And so anything that's too sugary will cause a blood sugar spike, and as we were saying, then the dip again. So you're right. So in terms of my smoothie, milk. If you tolerate milk, great. Otherwise, there's so many dairy-free alternatives out there now, which are great. Yogurt is amazing because you've got the gut bacteria, which is good for the gut health. Put in some nuts and seeds or some oats and things like that, kind of for a bit of carbs and a bit of protein. You can put in a handful of spinach, is always quite nice because it kind of blends up and you don't really taste it. But you've got the greens, which are packed full of B vitamins and magnesium, which, as we were saying, is really good for you. What else do I put in? Frozen berries are really nice, and that's probably nicer in the summer, although it's really hot today. So frozen berries are great to kind of cool it down. Avocado is amazing. So you can put you only need like a quarter of avocado, not very much. But that's quite nice because it's creamy and the fats in it are very satisfying, and the fats are really good to help your hormones. And obviously stress is, the cortisol is a hormone, so stress hormones, so everything we can do to help balance that out. Fats are really good for that. So you can do loads, and I'm happy to share some recipes on the Facebook group or something like that if that'd be helpful for people if they feel like.
You've been standing on your little legs for a long time. You're not collapsing or anything.
No, I'm okay, but thank you. I will, if I need to sit down, I will sit down. I find it easier to talk standing up, but thank you very much, and if my legs do get tired, I will let you know. But
recipes would be handy, and also I think bananas go black if you do one, but it's also what would be helpful is what you could make and what would keep, because sometimes I used to find that if you say could bung something in a thermos, which would keep it cold and then do it, so if it would sort of keep a day or so, because when you've energy you can make a bit.
Which actually was my point too, is batch cooking. But I can give you some smoothie ideas and some things that you can prepare. The other thing that's really good that you can kind of prepare in advance is you get, like the little mini freezer bags. So when you've got energy, chop up, like if you chop a banana, because you only probably want half a banana in a smoothie, and put a few half an avocado, you can put them into bags and put them in the freezer. So then when you've not got as much energy, all you've got to do is take the bag out of the freezer, put it in the blender with a bit of milk or a bit of water and blend it, and you're done. So it's not expensive, it's not complicated. So I can give you some ideas and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, batch cooking is a lifesaver, and I do it. So I do it now regularly, twice a week I'll batch cook things like chilies, curries, dals, soups, anything, because also sort of cooked foods is always going to be better for your digestion at this point as well, because it's easier for your body to absorb the nutrients from the cooked foods. So I batch cook like massive pots of stuff now, because quite honestly, if you're cutting up 1 onion to 2 onions, it's kind of not much different, and I get my partner to do a lot of the chopping and the hard work, so that's his job. And if you've got someone that can help you, great. If you've got family members and you can say to them, can you prepare me a big chili, they can cook it for their family and put you some portions in Tupperware, and then it goes in the freezer, then that's just reheating it, which can be really easy. So yeah, batch cook, and again, I can give you some recipes and some ideas for that, but preparing stuff when you can, in event of either not having the energy to cook or not having the time and being so busy enjoying life that you haven't got time to cook, you've got all these prepared things as well. Protein is another big thing, and this is something that until about 4 or 5 years ago I didn't realise how important protein was for our body, and I didn't know where to get protein from. But protein is basically essential for every single function in our body. Our body uses what's called the little amino acids, so the chains within the proteins. It uses those to do everything, to make hormones, to rebuild muscles, to rebuild tissues, to give us strength, give us energy. It's converted, it just does everything, and people generally don't eat enough of it. Meat and fish and eggs and dairy are the most common sources of protein. So when I was ill, I was eating meat and fish and dairy. I did cut out dairy eventually because it wasn't agreeing with me. And I've since cut out meat and fish. Meat because it didn't agree with me. I really struggled to digest it still, even once I was well. And then fish because I just decided, for me personally, I didn't want to eat meat and fish. So then it's beans, lentils, pulses, which some people go, oh, I can't digest them, but if you wash them, so you get a can of beans, put it in a sieve, wash it really, really well, and you might notice there's like a white foam. So wash that off. That's something that can stop you absorbing the nutrients and the protein from it. So you've got to wash them really well, but then you shouldn't have any digestive issues with them as well. But having protein in every meal is really, really important, and protein with snacks. So like hard-boiled eggs are amazing because you can take them around. They come in their own little portable shell. Just put them in a Tupperware, take it with you. You can have that anywhere, and that's just a really good source of protein that's going to help keep your blood sugars balanced for longer, keep your energies balanced, and it's just like, it's so important, and people kind of ignore it, and I used to ignore it massively. The next one's a big one, and people are going to probably not like me for it, but I'm going to say it anyway. So it's caffeine and sugar. So a lot of us probably know I used to use caffeine and sugar as a crutch to get through the day. So when I was at my worst, it was the only thing that I could think that was going to keep me awake to even do anything, or that was going to get me through the day, was caffeine and sugar. Sadly, what it's doing is causing more stress in your body, basically, without going into the science. It's adding stress to your systems, and it's giving you false energy. So you think you have energy from caffeine and sugar, and yeah, you do, but it's not real energy. It's actually going to be depleting the body. And it's really hard, and I'm not saying cut it out forever. I don't have caffeine now because actually now when I have it, it makes me go a bit hyper, so we try and avoid that. And sugar, I will have sugar from time to time.